When women gather in circle, magic happens. A subtle yet profound alchemy born from the transformative power of shared stories, witnessed tears, and collective wisdom. Today I spoke with an old friend of mine, Erika Tourell, who's been holding these circles for a very long time. I think you'll find this episode of Not Just Yoga quite inspiring, whether you're a woman or a man. And if you did find it interesting, please consider subscribing so that you can get more of such content. Thanks for tuning in. Hello, Erika, and thank you so much for joining me today on Not Just Yoga.
Oh, my pleasure. So lovely to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
It's really nice to see you as well, because it's been such a long time. So it's a good excuse to have a catch up.
Totally. Yeah.
So, we're talking about women's circles today, and there's something deeply powerful about women coming together. I mean, you could say even sacred. Do you remember when you started to make the shift from just your yoga teaching to facilitating these gatherings?
Yeah, I remember very well. Well, it's easy to remember because now my daughter is 20. And so when she was 6 months old, I took her for the very first time to Mama Heaven, which was a group of friends. And we were holding retreats for mums and their babies up to 18 months. So we would always start that retreat with a sharing circle. So for attentive listening, first of all, so the women would introduce each other into the space, and then to hold the space for women to share their birth stories. And so that was incredibly powerful. And so I did another Mama Heaven last year. And so I've been, actively holding those retreats for 10 years, and then just started more recently, just to go back after a little bit of a break. And so that was the first kind of taste of seeing, number one, the importance of women hearing each other's stories, but also women being able to tell their own stories, and just to be listened to, because I feel that we as women, we're just all longing to be seen and heard and held and given the space to speak. And so that's part of it, being able to express ourselves freely and authentically. And, that can be really scary for women in the beginning when they're not used to it. But, after 2 or 3 circles, it becomes much more natural, and women feel more relaxed to speak about themselves and their lives. And I find it's just so important, so valuable, these spaces.
Well, I mean, then, so you've actually answered my next question, which was to just sort of explain for those who maybe have never attended a women's circle what that is. But so what about going into what it takes to create such an event and also be the upholder of the space?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yeah, it's, I always love to encourage women to set up their own circles, but also really good for women to attend a few circles, maybe a few different women's circles, to see how, different the facilitation can be. So, it's an important role to be the guardian of the space, a guardian of the circle, but she's not the leader. It's like we are all the leaders of our own lives. So that's what's so beautiful about the circle, is that we're all equal. There's no hierarchy. It's about the dismantling of the hierarchy. That this is the new paradigm that we're co-creating, that is more like councils of people, councils of women, co-creating the sacred space together, so co-creating the ritual. So it's very important that, it's good to have a set of group agreements at the beginning. So, really important that everybody puts their own self-care on top. So you do what you need to look after yourself in the space. And also that everybody is very respectful of each other's space and process, and that, we do our best not to, disturb the space too much, like not to disturb each other, not to, that's not to say that you can't express as much emotion as you like, but just to respect that everybody's got their own place, and, you're not going to be interfered with, you're not going to be fixed or rescued. So when women share, it's really important that we're not trying to kind of rush in to, necessarily comfort each other or to fix each other. It's just like holding a space, because when we share from our hearts, we connect with our own inner wisdom. So it's important that the woman can hear herself, speaking, and then she finds her own kind of strength and, wisdom within. Another thing is creating the ritual. You need to take quite a lot of care around setting the space. So wherever you're going to hold it, in someone's house or in a venue, rented venue, you want to make sure that space is clean and clear. And maybe you've gone around with some incense just to clear the energy, maybe some sound, so it's a pristine space that everyone's stepping into. And then, when you actually, women come to take their place in the circle, and the one that opens the sacred space, it can be different ways to kind of call in the greater powers, to like root in and ground everybody into their bodies, to make sure everyone's really present for the ritual, because it is a ritual. It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. So it's also about designing the ritual. How do you want it to look? Is there going to be a theme? What you want to bring in? Is it going to be some, movement, meditation, singing, drumming, journaling, sharing? The sharing circle is, I would say, sometimes the most important part of the circle is just like being able to be witnessed and to witness other women. And that's usually where, everyone gets their hearts cracked open, because, we realize that we're all suffering in our different ways. We all have this similar emotions, different experiences, but similar strong emotions come to, destabilize us sometimes. And so it's really important that we see that no one has it easier than anyone else. And some people are really suffering and grieving in that moment, and some are celebrating, and, something amazing has happened in their life. So it's like we get to see, both sides of the coin. So we just like recognize our humanity, and we see our potential in the ones that are celebrating their wins, and we feel compassion and empathy for the ones that are really struggling, feeling broken, lost, whatever it might be. And we recognize that we've also been there.
Oh, that's beautiful. In a nutshell. If we just break that down a little bit, you were talking about the circle. I mean, the circle is quite a powerful geometrical shape. You could even say it's like some say it's like a pressure cooker of potential energy. And so when you're all in a circle together, it's like this this enclosure of energy is growing. So how do you, when you're dealing with so many people, how do you bring them into this stable state to grow this energy?
Yeah, you're quite right. So it's like we're creating a container for the magic to happen. So as I was saying, it's really important to have that clear space, and it's beautiful to walk into. Most likely, we'll have built a beautiful altar in the center, which might have candles, crystals, flowers, whatever you want, some bits and pieces from nature. Can also invite women to put their own sacred objects into the center, so they're charged up. So even just like, as soon as the women come in, they see the space. It's like beautifully set up. So, they take their place in the circle. And so already just having the beauty to kind of feast your eyes on, and it feels like, okay, this is something special. This is not something that happens every day. This is a sacred space. It feels sacred. And you realize that, you're there for a reason. And each woman is bringing something unique into the space. So there's this unique constellation of women, that will probably never happen again. So it's a unique, special, precious moment. And so, when everybody is sat down and we take a look at each other's faces, and then we just, the women are invited to go inside themselves. So we always start with some silence and some relaxation. So it's really important, because especially if women have never stepped into a space like that before, they can be feeling anxious and nervous. What am I letting myself in for? Don't know what's going to happen. So just a moment to land, and then to do some breathing, guided breath work, just to help really activate the parasympathetic nervous system, to allow everyone to feel like, okay, I'm here. The journey might have been a bit tumultuous, so you just start with a really nice calming space for breath and meditation. And then I would explain what's going to happen in the ritual that day. I would explain where the toilet is, so everybody, can come and go as they wish, and to say that, the self-care is really important. If you're feeling exhausted, if you want to lie down anytime, you don't have to be sat up the whole time. Just like do what you feel. This space is for you. So it's for the woman to take what she needs from that circle that day. And then, so we go through, I always like to start with some movement just to help women feel a little bit more relaxed, a little bit of somatic, some movement, a bit of yoga, stretching out. And then we will open the circle, and there'll be a circle of names, and everyone can introduce themselves, what drew them to the circle. And that's when we, start to get, okay, this is special. It's really nice to be able to, be with women. So important for women to be together. And, it's something that we've done for millions of years, women sitting together, sitting around fires, crafting together, whatever we might be doing. It's very traditional, especially in indigenous cultures, that women spend time together, cooking together, whatever it might be. And so it's like we're remembering, these circles are an opportunity for us to remember the old ways, and remember how good it feels for women to come together.
You talk about the old ways. I mean, recently, in the last couple of weeks, actually, I've really been feeling that the old ways are again the ways of the now, because it's really taking over. And I feel that the old ways are the ways of the old structure is now that structure which was hierarchical, monopolizing. That really feels like it's becoming the old way, and the old way is the new way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's hope that it just continues. I just wanted to also touch on the different traditions that you bring in. Like, which are the traditions that inspire you?
Yeah, thank you for that question. There's so many. So my journey started into healing and spirituality started when I was still in my teens. I was reading Shirley MacLaine's books, Out on a Limb. She was talking about hatha yoga and going to Peru and, flying saucers and things. I was also into Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. And I was fasting a lot. And I stepped into my first yoga class. I think I was 19. And even on that first yoga class, strangely, I went to speak to the teacher about teacher training. And it's like I almost must have had a sense of my future. And also I was getting a lot of leaflets from the Shivananda Center sent to my house that I discovered in Time Out in an ad in the back, from the age of 14, 15, even though I never managed it. But I used to dream about this teacher training. I'd see on the back page in the Bahamas, this 1 month long teacher training. So I started attending yoga classes. And also when I was 19, I did my first holistic massage training, which then followed by training after training after training after training, like doing all these different bodywork modalities, healing modalities. And then I was taken, my path took me to India. And that's where I really got the, let's say, what do we say? I got the bug. I started with 10-day silent retreats, the Vipassana retreats. So a deep dive into Buddhism, and so I did 4 10-day retreats. And then I found myself in Pushkar. A friend took me to this beautiful yoga center on the banks of the lake, the holy lake there. Even though he didn't practice with me for long, he ran off to Goa, but I stayed for a couple of months there, and I had a one-to-one teacher with an old swami, like the traditional way of doing practice one-to-one with a teacher. And so he taught me a sequence that I kept going for, religiously, a daily practice for a year after that. And, through all my travels, that ended up being a 4-year trip, actually, from Thailand to India, back to Thailand, back to India, to Bali. I traveled for a long time. And so I was immersing myself into a lot of different healing trainings whilst I was out there as well. I studied shiatsu in Thailand, and I didn't really take to the Thai massage training, but I found other trainings. And I was also working as a massage therapist while I was there, so I could sustain myself. And that's when I first started teaching yoga. So even though I wasn't qualified, it was like I just felt like I really wanted to share what I'd learned and how it had supported me so well. And so when I eventually came back to the UK, I found a teacher, an Iyengar teacher, and then I started, learning Iyengar yoga. And then I had a baby. And so very much the first, I've been teaching yoga now for nearly 30 years. So that was my first, that was the first kind of way that I connected with, let's say, ritual practice. So like the pujas in India, spending time with the sadhus, the sadhu babas, on my journey up to the Himalayas, the source of consciousness, the source of the Ganga, and sitting with sadhus around the fire, chanting mantras, offering the flame, like taking the arti, blessing ourselves with the light. And so that was, that has had a profound influence on me. But then also after I had my babies, so I've had 2 daughters, when the second one was about 3 years old, so she's 20 now, I got drawn into plant medicine ceremonies. So connecting to the traditions of Brazil. So that's a mix of cultures of like the African, West African, Yoruba, with the shamanic tradition that came out of the jungle of Brazil. And so something called Santo Daime. So we would gather in circles, wearing very smart clothes, and it would be singing and dancing for, let's say, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. From that kind of origin of Santo Daime is very formal practice, with music, musicians in the middle, and a beautiful altar. And then being inspired by the healing that I received in those circles, then I continued to explore different kinds of plant medicines, different styles of ceremony. So the Red Path from South America, the Native American path, the Lakota tradition from North America, what they call the Condor Eagle prophecy is when the South and the North Americas come together and reminded of the indigenous ways, how we, held ceremony, because we lost our own traditions in Europe thanks to the witch burnings, the Inquisition, the slaughtering of all the wise women and men. And so it's in a way we've kind of been shown the way by these indigenous cultures that still have their traditions intact. So India, South and North America. And so this has been like a reawakening, and then a remembering of the ways that we probably would have done it. It's just like what we might have done, the way that we use the elements, that we sit in circles together, that we use singing, music, dancing, to give thanks, to celebrate our lives, and to give thanks to the great Mother Earth, and to, you know, give thanks for all of the goodness in our lives, all of the struggles, all of, you know, just simply being alive. It's a way to give thanks. And that's the whole thing about the kind of reemergence now of Celtic spirituality. Is a kind of new version, but it's, you know, it's definitely like the pre-Christian pagan rituals. You know, we've got Stonehenge and the like, you know, all these holy places like special springs and wells. We've got the Druids that have, you know, there's a very formal way of celebrating these festivals in the wheel of the year. And so it's, you know, it's just giving ourselves permission to be quite creative in how we design our own rituals. There's no right or wrong way. It's just, you know, in a way, just experimenting and see what works, what, you know, what worked before may not work next time, you know, just to be very open, and also to be a channel, to be, you know, open to the divine powers to move through you, so that you're actually, you know, it's not about you, it's not about what you want to do, but, you know, if you can just kind of put yourself to one side, like I'm sure you know that space, you know, when you're teaching a class, sometimes it's just like, you know, something takes over you and you're just channeling, and it's coming through you, not from you.
Precisely, but that is also something that takes experience. Like before, you were saying, yes, I understand there's no hierarchy, and you do encourage women to go off and create their own circles, but there is also a big responsibility in the sense that if you are creating the circle or leading one without being at the top, like you were saying, there has to still be some level of experience, even the ability to step out of your own way. That comes from a personal practice and self-cultivation. So how much experience would you say somebody needs before they can go out and hold these gatherings?
Well, I would say, you know, as a rough guideline, maybe you might enter into these spaces, you know, maybe 3 months, 6 months. I say, you know, at least attend maybe 5 circles, so that you get a sense, because also, you know, you learn from experience. It's like teaching yoga. It's like the more experience you have, the better teacher you are. So you learn through doing. So we learn the most from our mistakes, even though it's, you know, can be quite painful and humiliating. It's like I've learned myself, you know, still, even though I've been holding circles, you know, for many years, like 20 years, it's like I still sometimes make mistakes. You know, there's this thing about oversharing, you know, which can be a thing, and also letting women ramble, which, you know, some women love to talk, others you have to really encourage them to share. So to have a timer. So I learned the hard way to, you know, sometimes the circle was just taken up with one or two women, you know, kind of monopolizing the space. And so also being cautious about, you know, how much am I going to share? I mean, in a way, it's quite nice for the guardian of the circle sometimes to set the tone, to go first with a share, maybe quite a deep share, to be able to, you know, demonstrate vulnerability and truth telling,
Yeah.
so the other women can feel like, okay, I can step in and also reveal myself, you know, my true face, you know, what's really going on for me. So, but there's, you know, again, it's a fine line between not saying too much but saying enough. So that just comes through experience. So, you know, I would say, you know, women could maybe start a circle with, let's say, only 3 friends, you know, and that's good enough. It's just like, and then gaining experience, maybe you'll invite another 1 or 2 people, you know, after a couple of months, and just let it grow very slowly and organically, so that you feel comfortable. So you're not feeling, you know, anxious and like it's too much for you to hold, that you're not going to, you know, rent a space, you know, put an ad out and get like 20 women when you've only been doing it for a year, you know, that
Right.
might be too overwhelming. So you just build your capacity slowly. and learning through doing.
Oh, is there any experience that you can share with us that sort of went completely wrong?
Let me think. Well, that one that I just mentioned, just having, one or two women just using up all the space with their own, and me not stepping in quick enough to, if someone's like really going deep into something, you really don't want to shut them down, because there's a need, there's a need for that to be vocalized and held and witnessed. So that's when, I always from now on do use a timer. But let me think, did anything else go really wrong? I don't think anything has really, actually. The women are always very respectful of each other, and I can't think of anything. No,
Well,
no.
that's lucky.
Yeah.
Have you heard of any stories of things that could go wrong or that have gone wrong?
Well, I think there's something I'd like to say maybe about the wounded sisterhood, which is something, which is why we gather in these spaces, just women together, because we've been raised to compete against each other and, compare ourselves. You talk about this compare and despair way of being sometimes, especially with social media, isn't it? It's kind of rife that we can feel less than. But also in that same take that we can sometimes feel superior to others. So there's this something about being in the circle and kind of learning, unlearning and relearning actually how to lift each other up. That's the whole point. Like, women are rising to support women, supporting other women. It's like really needed now. But, we can also get in touch with our shadows in these circles. So we can, have kind of negative reactions. We can be triggered by someone else sharing, or someone, that is maybe seems to have it all, or, the kind of all these different emotions that get stirred in us, like envy and jealousy, or resentment or anger or rage. This is part of honoring the dark goddess. So it's like really also making space in yourself for that. So I was talking before about the traditions that I've been exposed to, which have inspired me. So the last 3 years I've been drawn into becoming an apprentice to grief. So these grief ceremonies now that I'm facilitating originate from West Africa, from the Dagara tribe specifically, Malidoma, Same, Sobonfu. They brought this technology, ritual technology, over for us here in the West. And it's like giving ourselves the permission that we need to get in touch with our grief and our darkness, our shadow, the difficult emotions that get squashed down, suppressed, ignored, denied, avoided. And so these are specifically to kind of stir the grief and to release the grief. So slightly different from a women's circle, more maybe cathartic and cleansing, because we need, there's a backlog. There's such a backlog of what's being held inside. The trauma lives in the body, the ways that we've denied ourselves from not expressing ourselves, because we maybe don't feel safe, or we haven't learned how to. And so, there's something about that, like making space for the more tender parts that don't get seen, the emotions that get ignored. And so, yeah, I'm just very grateful, because the more you attend, so it would have been a regular practice there in the tribes, in the tribe there in West Africa. So the more that we attend to our grief and clear and cleanse the body, then the more space there is for joy to arise. And so it's like, recognizing actually our grief is so precious and it needs to be acknowledged. Grief and love, two sides of the same coin. That's how it's spoken about. So that's part of the circle technology as well.
It sounds like it's a learning that vulnerability is a strength.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
Beautiful.
a soft strength. Yeah.
Very needed.
Very needed. And also it's connecting us with our humanity. You know, it's like we're all in it together. You
Yeah.
know, we're all struggling, we're all suffering, we all face the same similar challenges. And, you know, let's hold each other. Let's be the warm, loving arms for each other. You know, we need to come together in these times to create unity and, you know, awaken compassion in our hearts. And so that is, you know, that's going to be part of this co-creation of the new paradigm.
It's happening.
It's happening.
It really is happening. And it also feels like at some point, like, you know, there's so many people learning to be healers and getting a certificate for this, getting a certificate for that. And I mean, I don't like the word certificate or training, but it feels like at some point there are going to be more healers than there are people needing to be healed, which is beautiful. I mean, they won't be able to do it as a profession, but maybe we won't even need professions by then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. I just feel that, you know, when we talk about healing, like learning to heal, you know, ultimately it's about self-healing. So all of these modalities that we learn and that we study, you know, we are our own guinea pigs and we are drawn to what we feel, you know, is going to help heal us. So it's always really important to remember, you know, that it starts within. It's like the healing has to be embodied, it has to be experienced, you know, for you to be able to stand with any kind of authority before you can teach others or hold space for others. You've got to have, you know, really embodied the work, you know, done the inner work with these different modalities. And so, you know, I still think it's quite a small percentage of the population, you know, like the mainstream, you know, the majority of the people, they are not, you know, they're still not necessarily going towards this work, you know, or seeking out these spaces to heal themselves, because it's a big moment, isn't it, when you kind of step into like recognizing, oh, actually, yeah, maybe my childhood wasn't as good as I thought it was. You know, when you start to acknowledge that, oh, you know, maybe I have got some trauma that I need to clear. It's a, you know, it's a big step, isn't it? Just where you start to turn the gaze inwards when you, because we're so distracted by everything in the external world, actually to turn the gaze inwards. You know, I don't know if you've heard this, like it said that the attraction to the external world is 7 times as strong to the attraction to the inner world.
Oh,
And
no.
so it's like, you know, it's especially with technology and everything else, it's like there's so much distraction. And, you know, the desire to do this deep healing work, I think it's still quite a small percentage of the population. So I feel that the more healers there are, the better.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, just talking briefly before we move on, we're talking about grief and trauma, which is last week I was talking to a homeopath, Victor Chirone, about these subjects. And he was saying how it's the response which is elicited is innate in the person. And now they have, I mean, they have homeopathic remedies that once they choose the right remedy, all those old responses actually break down and disintegrate. It's quite amazing.
Wow.
So those who might not want to turn inwards in certain ways might be able to turn inwards with the help of things like homeopathy, slowly, depending on
Beautiful.
how deep the trauma is.
Mm.
I'd also like to just talk about, and it's sort of related in the sense that you've got these women's circles, but the healing doesn't stop there. It's like the healing ripples out. So even if you're not part of that circle, those that have experienced the circle and have come away lighter, then spread that light to everyone that they come in contact with. And that just carries on and carries on. Do you have any stories or anything that you can share with us about a transformational story that's beautiful for everyone to hear?
Mm. Well, there's so many. I mean, there's been so many. it's such an honor and a privilege to be able to hold space for women for this work. Because I do hear so much wonderful feedback of women having complete shift in the way that they view the world, their worldview, their perspective changes. And so it's like, it's perfect because it's like the year of the snake this year. So it's just learning, especially for women, is so important, like that we are cyclical beings, like nature, just the same, to recognize that there is a death, birth, rebirth cycle going on all the time, not only with the solar cycle each and every single day, but each and every lunar cycle, and each turn of the wheel of the year. And so when you start to tune in with your cyclical nature, and it also around women menstruating have that same death, rebirth with each and every bleed. So it's like a rebirth after you've finished your time, and you're coming into the spring, into the summer, the autumn, and then into the winter for the bleeding time, the retreat from the world. And so it's it's like we can just give ourselves a break, because like the whole thing about capitalism is like we're expected to be switched on,
It's true.
365 days a year, 24/7
Yeah.
almost. And so you just start to recognize, oh, actually there is this cycling, there is this winter, spring, summer, autumn, each and every single day, each and every month. And so we can just start to be a little bit more gentle with ourselves when we recognize that actually I need to rest now. I need to retreat from the world. I'm done, I'm done with like putting on this face, being out there. And so I think this is part of it. When we come into the women's circles, we have this experience, quite a powerful experience of shedding, like clearing some of the conditioning, dismantling some of this internalized patriarchy, internalized misogyny, all of it, the classism, the sexism, just all the isms, racism. It's just like we find the unity, we kind of find that ground zero where we're just finding common ground. Let's find the common ground of, we're in this together. And so you start to feel some solidarity with other women, and then you can start to extend that to the people in your life, like to be a little bit more compassionate and empathic, that we're just doing our best,
Yes.
we're just showing up as best we can. Sometimes we need to retreat, and sometimes we need to step up and shine and say our piece and share our gifts. And other times we need to retreat, go into that winter kind of hibernation, like take some time out. So I think that's the power of, especially being a woman. I mean, the men have the same cycles, but sometimes they need the women to remind them or to get in tune.
Yeah.
We're a little bit more connected to the earth than them. So we can teach them as well that, these birth, death, rebirth cycles.
Yeah, well, we have to also teach them that we have a different cycle to them, and each has to respect the other. And I mean, like if you look on social media now, the younger generations, they sort of already have what we kind of had to spend years digging to find.
Yeah.
So obviously everyone is standing on the shoulders of the generation before, and so it's beautiful to see where they go with it. Really is.
Yeah, I'm so inspired by the young women these days. I mean, it's incredible that they are, just like so far ahead of where we were back at that age, and it's so needed. It's like I feel
True.
very inspired and hopeful for the future when I see these young people going out and just going for it, sharing their magic, and being so creative and plugged in, and just like really able to connect to their beauty and their inner light. And it's very inspiring.
Yeah, it's beautiful to witness and to learn from. Well, Erika, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. And to all of you for tuning in, thank you so much. I hope that this has been helpful for you. And if you haven't done a women's circle before and you were wondering what it was about or you're interested, Erika's details will be below. Get in touch with her. I'm sure she's going to have something cooking that you can tune into.
I do hold bi-monthly moon circles. So for the dark moon, the black moon, and the full moon, we meet online every month to hold an embodiment ritual, which is, like I explained earlier, some somatic movement, breath work, some yoga nidra, lying down, planting seeds. So it's a really good way to track yourself as you move through the wheel of the year.
The cycle.
Just work with the moon, because there's a time for shedding and then there's a time for planting new intentions. And so it's a really nice way just to start to feel a little bit more in tune with the natural cycles. And also I have some in-person circles coming up in London, which everyone's welcome to come to, and also some work with couples that I do. So yeah, it'd be lovely to connect.
Lots for you to look into. Thanks for tuning in and see you again soon.
Thank
Bye
you
for
so
now.
much, Natasha.
Thanks, Erika. Thank you.